analysis, it was very clear that it is a no, because they have a consolidated pay. So if you have a consolidated pay, then you cannot say that you now must add on a house allowance. So our initial conversations with the Parliamentary Service Commission, we were very clear to them that this is our position, and they chose to take it on to court. So, of course, before we went to court, there was a lot of discussion around it, which wasn't very pleasant. But yes, the matter went to court. We went through the court process, but we are happy to say that in the end, actually, the commission was right, and the court ruled that they are not entitled to the house allowance. The next stage was, of course, because they had been paid this money, was the recovery, because, the court says whatever has been paid has to be recovered. So that wasn't very pleasant for a number of them, because they felt strongly, recovering money. It's not always an easy thing to recover money.
Especially when you don't have it.
Yes, when you yes, you've already used it, obviously. So that wasn't pleasant. It was a political situation where there was a lot of pressure to say we are entitled. But in a way, when I look back, it is good that it went through the legal process, because then the court then pronounced itself and clearly said this is the way it is. And we've had a number of those instances where the court then has had to interpret the mandate of the commission. The other one, you recall, there's a time during the BBI process. And at that point, the trade unions, especially COTU, was very loud about disbanding SRC. And it became a chorus everywhere as there was a caravan on the BBI. It was going with that message of disband SRC. And it was also a question of really not understanding and not appreciating the role of SRC. At that point, the trade unions felt that SRC was interfering in the collective bargaining negotiation process. Because you remember, before SRC, there is a tripartite that negotiates, and it's in the law, and we respect that. It is a tripartite. It is the employer, it is the employee, and then the Ministry of Labour comes in.
Yes.
But here now, the Constitution has brought another arm, which is the SRC. So it took a long time for everybody to understand where is the role of SRC in this tripartite discussion. And we kept saying, look, our role is to advise the employer. We're not dismantling the tripartite. We're simply advising the employer on behalf of the taxpayers on what is affordable, and that you can only negotiate within the parameters that SRC has advised the different institutions. So that was a lot of noise for a very long time. It was unfortunate that BBI discussions, it rode up on that. It became a political discussion. But in the end, what then has happened is we took a step to actually develop very clear collective bargaining negotiations guidelines. We spent a lot of time in sensitization forums with the stakeholders to understand our role. We went further to develop a curriculum with Kenya School of Government on collective bargaining negotiations. That has helped, and it has quietened that space that, at the beginning there was a lot of uproar around the role of the commission. As we exit, I'm happy that there is better understanding. I'm not saying absolutely accepting, because when you still come back to us, and unfortunately we still find employers going ahead to negotiate very well knowing that they have not sought the advice. Then when they come, then obviously we are saying no, because you've gone outside the parameters in the Constitution. So we still find that once in a while, but the majority are beginning to appreciate the role of SRC and stick to that.
Okay. A commission that deals with how much state and public officers will be paid, whether or not they will receive allowances in addition to what they earn, whether that will be decreased over time. It doesn't matter how you look at it, it is going to be heavily political in nature. Yes, we did. We heard chants many times coming from Parliament, coming from assemblies saying, yes, Lyn Mengich and her SRC must go. Because what you're doing essentially is that you're curtailing development by curtailing how much we're able. How are we supposed to do our job if every time you've come with your pen and you've said, cross this out? There's also the thought that came and said, well, you're doing bidding for somebody. You heard this. You heard it over and over again. You came under attack very many times where people would say that the commission is there to do the bidding of certain quarters. And there was also the call for, like you said, disband SRC. There was also the call for, look, Lyn Mengich is not getting this thing right. You're curtailing development. How did you deal with that?
It's always being faithful to the Constitution. You stick to the mandate, and that's what we did. Is at the end of the day is to remember that the people of Kenya put the SRC in the Constitution for a reason. And they have entrusted the Commission with a responsibility. That responsibility is spelled out. It is very clear. So as we navigated these waters, yes, there will be those who are saying you're curtailing us, you're not doing this, some saying you're doing bidding. At the end of the day, it is about we know we are doing the right thing because that is what is required of us in the Constitution. So that is really how we navigated all the waters. Having said that, it doesn't mean that we just, bulldoze our way and say this is our mandate. We must do it. And I guess it goes back to the proverb of kindness that you talked about at the beginning. It is the how. The how you navigate the waters is very, very important. Yeah. And one of the things that from the onset as a commission, we deliberately put in place a process for stakeholder engagement. We even have a committee of the commission that looks at stakeholder engagement because we did realize that it is not going to be easy to just say this is our mandate, we must do it. Because the other party must also understand where you're coming from, understand where we're coming from, so that when we say we're freezing salary structures, for example, during the COVID, although it was obvious to everyone that the economy cannot sustain an increase, it was not enough to just say we are freezing salary structures. We then had to speak to all institutions, explain to them what this means, and how to navigate the discussions also with the employees because there are expectations. So deliberately bringing on board stakeholders did help. The other one, which we did twice, is to convene the National Wage Bill Conference.
Right.
We called it national because the discussion was not about government speaking to itself alone. It was, one, bringing all the government stakeholders, but also including civil society. We included private sector. We brought in the Taxpayers Association. So bringing in everybody so that we have one conversation around the national wage bill. So that then helps to ensure that we walk along with everyone. So in the end, it's really, in summary, is to say, yes, as a constitutional commission, we are independent, but from the onset, we realize that that independence also means that you are interdependent. And therefore, you must collaborate and work together with the other arms of government without compromising your mandate, but so that you work together. They understand where you're coming from. And in the end, you may not agree. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we may not agree. But at least we have had that conversation and you know where we are coming from and why we may not agree to your point of view. And we also hope that they have understood us in that way. So it doesn't mean everything was always smooth because we still ended up with very many court cases.
Yes.
But at least we've had the conversation.
So the wage bill conference, which I wanted to touch on as well, it was in a couple of months ago. and the president was in attendance, the number was 35. And to have a conversation with all those bodies who are involved in making sure that you can actually bring down the wage bill, because what we're talking about now, wage bill, is that the monies that you pay in remuneration, salaries, emoluments, all of these things, to bring that number down to 35. One of the critical issues I remember watching and hearing was the numbers that you spoke of, which you have no control over. So even if you recommend or assign a particular amount of money, if you're not able to reduce the numbers, it really then becomes an exercise in futility. But what did you agree on that can actually be followed? 35% is the goal. It is very ambitious in a very short period of time. But what did you agree on? Or was it just another conference to show that, there were words being spoken?
We agreed on 10 resolutions. 10. There are 10 resolutions. The previous conference, there were more, and we implemented 80%, so they are implemented. In these 10 resolutions, because I can't speak on all of them, but just to pick maybe one or two that will really, really help to drive the wage bill down. One of them was to take the ownership to the stakeholders and to say to every institution that they will develop strategies and plans on how they will achieve the 35%. That is a resolution that every institution will now go back, develop that strategy and plan on how to get to 35%. Now, then on the numbers, which you have rightly mentioned, it is not within the purview of the Commission to design the organizational structures and to approve staff establishments. That's the other area that there was a specific resolution on staff establishments, because when we looked at the approved staff establishments today, on average, government is operating with 62%, around 60% staff establishment. And the wage bill is where it is today, which means if we filled it to 100%, it would just go overboard.
Through the roof.
Completely. And that's a big worry, is that you have staff establishments that are approved, meaning that the institution can actually recruit, right? And therefore, it was good to have the conversation and say, no, these staff establishments need to be relooked at afresh and come up with staff establishments that is aligned to achieving the 35%. That is a resolution of the conference that now rests with other actors to initiate and implement. The same with organizational structures, the way they are designed. Because in the wage bill, in the discussion, it was very clear that one of the problems is the organizational structures are designed for career progression, not necessarily for a fit-for-purpose organization, right?
There's something that comes to mind even as you're speaking. I'm thinking, I actually hear what you're saying very clearly, but what is it that seems to be our understanding about job creation? Because everything we are seeing, it appears that those who are in decision-making processes, like Parliament, seem to think that job creation means government employs people. The issue of growing the economy so that within the economy, people can find
jobs.
Yes, and that doesn't seem to be an emphasis, because whether it's the county government, the national government, same problem. And there seems to be a fight to ensure, the county government is a mess. But anyway, there seems to be this fight that everyone must be employed within the government, or ways must be found to get people to employ within the government, which means then that resources that the government has will be skewed in the direction of paying salaries, resources that could have been used elsewhere.
Absolutely. The issue that you have raised is a critical point, is which one comes first?
Right.
Is the chicken and egg? Do I say employ, or do I create an enabling environment so that the private sector can grow and create jobs, right? And that's the conversation that in the wage bill conference, we actually called it productivity. Can we be more productive as a country? Because if we are, we will grow the economy. Yes, we can. Our productivity in Africa, and we share the figures, that in Africa we were ranked 22 in labor productivity. In the world, we were ranked 155. And yet, as a country, we are saying we've got the best talent, which I believe actually. I know we do have very good talent. Kenya has very good talent. So why would a country that prides itself of very good talent, when it comes to labor productivity, you are 22 in Africa? That doesn't add up. And it actually calls upon Kenya to say we need to take the issue about labor productivity very seriously. If we do, we will grow our economy. If we do, we shall create employment. So you don't start by employing, you start by creating growing the economy so that you can create employment. And that is where we need to switch the two. So I agree with you absolutely. We start with growing the economy, and then you can then create jobs. You don't create jobs fast.
And yet we seem to be stuck in that limbo where that just does not happen. That it can be used, it's said, create a conducive environment so that, things can happen thereafter. But it seems to be that it's said, but that the requisite action then, unfortunately, is not taken. And we have commissions who advise. We have people in Treasury that advise. There's an entire planning ministry that advises on things like this, planning towards the economy. Like you said, it's not just the SRC that sits alone, but they're institutions that are interdependent. So then how would a working relationship be? What would it look like to say that you can recommend and set things here, you can plan here, you can implement here, but until and unless all of this is working in tandem, then we're actually retrogressive as opposed to progressive.
There's this thing called a Ferris wheel. Or is it the hamster and the wheel?
Both same concept.
Yes. Because look, I'm thinking, when you look at our education system, what do we train people to do? The CBC tried to get her out of the rat, but the CBC has many, many complications. Why I'm asking the question, there was this the conversation I was having with the honorary council for Estonia. And what she told me was something very interesting. Their curriculum requires, by the time someone gets to the level of secondary school, part of what you're examined in is the conceptualization of a project, the actually implementing the project while you're still a student, and the ability to actually actualize it when you leave college. So essentially, by the time you leave college, you are leaving college when you're already self-employed. And that is why you'll find in a country like that, jobs come a-begging. There are more jobs than there are people who are willing to do those jobs. But given our education system and the way it's exactly constructed, it looks like we'll never get out of this rut until that particular nexus is tweaked. Because so long as people are inculcated into a culture that makes them believe that going to university automatically affords you a job where you will be employed, as opposed to you thinking of how it is, and the system encourages this, and we will never get out of this rut, especially when you look at how our populations keeps bulging.
Absolutely, and you're right. There's got to be a mind shift, a mindset change in the way we look at things. And just going back to your point, and you're saying, yes, we how do we get it done? Because we can all talk about we need to be more productive. We need to, your point, we need to look at our education system. Where do we begin? And it was the essence of, although it was a wage bill conference, it was beyond wage bill. If you actually look at those resolutions, it is addressing the core of how services are delivered in government and how we can become more productive. So when we look at this interdependence, which is so critical for delivery of any government initiatives, then the question then is, how do you ensure it's actually implemented, that they are not just resolutions, and how do we get out of this quagmire? Yes, our population is growing, there is high employment, very high expectations from the citizens, rightly so. Right. The young people are expecting more jobs. So then the next question is, then where does this take us? And for me, it goes back to we must be able to deliver. We must be able to do better. And that means having a more coordinated approach in the way services are delivered by government.
By government.
Yeah.
If you were to do a self-evaluation, sometimes sticky, but if you were to give yourself a score, and with an explainer in terms of, how you then did perform over the last 6 years, from a national point of view, in terms of what the commission was mandated to do, what would that be?
Out of 10 or out of 100?
Let's do 10. It seems a little bit more much.
20 gives you more leeway.
I would say I would score, around 80% there. Yeah, I think there are things we could have done better, but yeah, I think we've done a good job.
What are some of those things you think you'd have been able to do better?
Okay, so some of the things, it's goes to, there are things we could have done better, but I want to say it was because of budget constraints, because sometimes there are things you really want to do, but you can't do because you're constrained. One of the things that we really wanted to do is how to automate our processes better, have to leverage technology. Let me say to leverage technology, because for the last 6 years when we came on board, what we really wanted is to have a data warehouse where we can then be able to interrogate using data intelligence to be able to interrogate the entire wage bill and do a wage bill forecasting. And, theoretically, we've been looking at a wage bill forecasting model that would enable us to forecast on where the wage bill is going, but be also able to have an intelligence system that really is analytical to give us the data on what is in the wage bill. So that one we didn't quite achieve. We had the vision, we wanted to do it. We really didn't get the money as it is, the budget, to be able to do that. So I can say that one we did not achieve. We would really have liked to have done a little bit more on that. And of course, in any situation, there are things that you can't always say, you've done 100%. We can do much more and better in stakeholder engagement, especially the public. I think there's
communication and awareness.
Yeah, there's a lot we do that we realize not everybody actually knows how much we've done. So we do try in terms of communication, but I think it could be better so that there is better and closer collaboration and understanding beyond our immediate stakeholders. I think the immediate stakeholders, we did a lot of stakeholder engagement, but probably with the public out there, we had 1 or 2 engagements with civil society and some of the external stakeholders, but I think it can be much better. Get other people to understand. And it's not just SRC. I actually feel we have a forum for all commissions and independent offices. And we've been asking ourselves that question, that as commissions, we have another role that we hardly speak about. Chapter 15 commissions, Article 249, gives us 3 key responsibilities. That's why I said, we can't be 100.
Right.
And it talks about promoting constitutionalism, right? And then it talks about, so when you say promoting constitutionalism, what have we promoted?
Right.
Okay. Protect the sovereignty of the people of Kenya. That's huge.
That's big.
How do you protect the sovereignty? And then it says ensure observance by all state organs on the values and principles. So that part of beyond the SRC immediate mandate, I think we could have done better, not just as SRC, but collectively as constitutional commissions. When if we are tasked then to protect constitutionalism, promote constitutionalism, protect sovereignty of the people of Kenya. And I look at it and I look back and say, how much have we done on that one? And I say probably not as much as we should. Maybe we've stuck too much on our individual mandates and focused on, let me deliver my SRC mandate.
Mandate before that.
But there is that other bigger mandate for constitutional commissions and independent offices that needs to be more prominent, and to every commission to speak more to that part of the Constitution, Article 249.
Okay.
So that's why I say, that's another area.
We're coming to, we're right at the end of it already, but in 10 seconds, really, Lyn, given another opportunity to have another go at it, Constitution allowing, would you?
Yes, Constitution allowing, but it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
To give another opportunity. Thank you. You still have some time there. It'll be interesting to see how you wrap things up. Thank you so much for being our guest this hour and continuing to look at the work that the SRC does, and also of taking stock in terms of what could have been done better, time and resources allowing, and just those general attitudes. Thank you very much for being here. And of course, our conversations with you will continue into the future. Asante Sana. Good morning, everybody. It is 9 a.m.